So what you find me doing here is I finally decided to try and have a go at making this crawl through. So I've taken the glass out without breaking it, so it's 2 bits of glass in the house, and now I'm trying to work out how I'm going to cut this without A, making a mess of it across here, and B, across there, and what's the best way of doing it without setting light to this truck. And the other thing is the glass windows in here, I'm going to roll them all the way down. I learned my lesson on that one a long time ago when doing up a Ford Escort, a Mark II Escort. I ruined all the windows because I was busily grinding away on the inside and completely forgot about the glass, and they were ruined. So yeah, and I was lucky to get spares for that because it was quite an old car by then. Anyway, thing is, once I've cut this, because it's this lovely rolled over pressed steel, I'm not going to have this lip. I'm not sure, because when I ordered this I sort of roughly measured it. I wasn't sure how thick this was. Perhaps I should have taken it all out and done it properly. This I can always grind a little bit off it if I have to. But the idea was that the window frame was going to seat in on the slip, not on this outer bit here. If that makes sense. This is quite a bit thicker, good 20mm probably. I could have got it so it sat in here, but it would have come out this way a little bit more than I wanted it. So the theory is that it goes in there. Now I've got the frame off the door, because my system is going to be a plug type system. It's not going to have a hinge. So the idea is this goes this way in here, and just about wants to go in. So I've got to make a decision. Do I go to that plate, or do I go to this rolled? So do I go to the seamed weld here, or do I go to the rolled edge with this? Because this is pretty square, as in the lip is 90 degrees, so it's not ideal for fitting. But yeah, I want it to go through if I can, but so I don't want to make a frame. I was hoping to rely on the truck body, but if I have to, I will have to. Believe it. I cut it all. Thought I had the camera on, but I didn't. But anyway, that's what's left of it. But anyway, just getting that last bit off. That's what we got. Yeah, some good nick, isn't it? Considering how old it is. Bloody good nick. Anyway, let's see if we can get this window in. What I'm doing here is cutting incrementally because I'm still trying to save the press lip, which has got the spot welds on, because I think it'll save a lot of hassle. But as I progress, I realize I'm having to cut more and more and more to get that frame, the door frame, to fit in, which is a bit unfortunate. It's a bit of an awkward one because it's got a double lip on it, if you can see that. I'm not sure if you can. And I'm past this bit, but not this lip here, and I'm not sure. I thought this would go in a bit further, because I'm trying to think of a way of clamping it from the other side, so when the glue's on there, it's actually got a physical connection as well as like I did the hatches in the box. I mean, this was designed for 30 to 40 mil composite panel, not really steel work. So I don't know whether to try and get it over this lip and get it to go in, or which means it'll be tight here, which will look nice. But if I want to put any insulation, which I do on the back wall, it's going to be awkward putting it onto this. I want to sort of tuck it under it if I can. But if I tuck under it, it means I can't glue. So I'm just having to think about what do I want to do with this. Tuck under it, which is a nice finish, but not good for the frame to sort of bed in properly, if that makes any sense. And at the top, I think the central pillar area is causing a issue here. It's all the way into that first bit, but it won't rest because the center pillar is thicker, so I have to cut a notch out. So I think that's what I'll do next. I'll put it against it again and see how I feel. If I don't feel like it's right, I will cut more out, which will mean I've got to be careful of some of the spot welds don't disappear. If they do, I'm going to have to tack weld them on the seam where they come apart, because you don't want those to go, because that's part of its strength. I had to make the decision in the end and cut that spot weld lip out. It was the only way that door frame was going to fit nicely. Eventually I decided to make a frame which would actually fit into the truck cab bodywork, which would then be the intermediary part between the truck body and the actual frame of the door itself. I thought that would be the easiest way, and so that's what I set about doing. So that's the frame done. Took way longer than I'd like it to have taken, and I ran out of MIG wire, classic. So that's it there. I'm going to sand these back to give them a nice finish, and this one needs a little bit more work, and the whole thing fits really nicely. So what I'm going to do now is I've made a template for the gusset that goes in here to make sure it surrounds the window. Alright, 3, 4, done. I'll just put them in here, clean up the gowl, weld that in, and then adjust it as we go. So it seems to fit pretty good. A couple of warpage issues, but I deliberately made it out of thin metal, not too thin, it's 1.2, but the idea is that it can sort of mold to the shape of the actual back panel of the truck, because the back panel of the truck is slightly like curved. Ever so slightly, but it's enough to notice. And when this frame goes on, I want it to sort of flex with the cab, and I think it will. It fits really nice. It's just proud here, so I'm going to clean it all up and sand it with the sander to get a nice finish, get any weld splatters out. that's a pretty good fit. I might just take a little bit off. That's it for this. It's only taken nearly all day. But anyway, c'est la vie. So I thought I'd update you with what I'm doing for the crawl through. And it is a crawl through, not a pass through. And the main reason is because of this mechanism that basically hooks the cab back in when after you've tilted it. So you can see how close it is to the level of the bottom of the window. So ideally I'd like to have gone either lower or higher. Couldn't go lower because of my bed. Couldn't go higher because you can see there's not much left up there without actually damaging the integrity of the gutter lining, which is where the real strength is. So I thought when I measured to order the parts from Alibaba for the actual window door, which is right there, and there's the frame for it right here, I could go just above the seam, and you can see I tried by cutting here because I didn't want to lose the integrity of the spot welds. Unfortunately that's not going to work, so I've had to cut the seam weld off, and then I just tapped it down with a hammer or a mallet to get it reasonably level. I've got this great big hole here from the center pillar that went up here, and the same up the top, so I'm going to make a template and weld that in. And this is all flattened, and I've got it as close as I could, so some places I can meet, others I'm not, so I'm going to have to use some sort of filler rod to fill that in. You can see how I've cut the seams, same up here. The light's a bit poor here, but the same scenario. Now the biggest problem with this Isuzu cab, and I don't know why they did it, the outside roll is a lot sharper, which lends itself to being more flat, but the whole thing tapers from about 40 mil to about 30 or less at the top here. So it's not even, and it's got a slight slope. So that caused issues. Now ideally I would have made a tunnel and tried to pack it on this side and then just put angle iron on the other side to seal it and go out there. The box is right here. The only thing is I don't want to do that because I don't want the tunnel to be as tight as the door frame itself. So the door frame, there's the aperture. And what I wanted to have a sense of, I wanted to feel spacious as they were coming through, and the last hurdle would be just the aperture of the door. So, and I wanted some insulation. So that meant if I'd built a tunnel, it would have been perfect for the door, but the tunnel itself would have felt very narrow and claustrophobic, even though it's a very short distance. Well, that's how I feel. I'm trying to make it as easy for me. So that's the reasoning behind it. So the tunnel section is going to be a separate fabrication. So at the moment I'm fabricating strengthening aperture here using some angle that I bought from Bunnings, which I then managed to get it bent so it fits in there, there like so. So I've been spending time getting rid of all the paint, back to bare metal, getting rid of the gal, because you can only get metal this thin at an angle in gal. You can't seem to get it in raw steel. So you can see here, if I can bend you down there, I want it just on the inside of that water dripper here, and a little bit more inside than that here. Same with this, you can see how it tapers, and once I got it set up I will tack it in, see how it looks, and that will be a tight fit to the frame, which is this frame here, which then obviously takes the frame of the door afterwards. That's the idea. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take a break because that's a bit boring to watch. I've been stitch welding it because I don't want to burn holes through it. I managed to overlap some of it because it fits better with the frame of the actual hatch. So as you can see, I've been slowly, bit by bit. It's the best way to do it. And then I'll make a template and a piece of metal to fill that gap. So I've started that end. I'm going to work my way all the way. And this is the easier one, but it's doing my knees no good. All that age and that. And then obviously the tough one is going to be this one at the top here. Now I'm going to pull it in a little bit. Now someone's put some crush tubes here for the seat belts, so I'm going to have to take those out. Maybe I'll leave them in, you never know, they might be worth it, but I'll see how much I can pull it in to narrow that gap, because that's going to be a pig upside down to weld. It should do. I don't think it'll have an effect on the rest of the frame here, because I'll put some sort of cover plates on the outside. I'll grind all this back. I'd really like to get this buttoned up today, and to the point where it's semi-sealed by putting a layer of steel on the outside there. And I'll think about how I'm going to deal with this inner part. But this is so solid now, it's ridiculous. And with this frame, which is going to be not welding it in, I'm just going to Sikaflex 252 and rivet it into the frame, so it'll give this whole structure some rigidity. Another day, another project. So I've now put this plate on here. You can't really see it because there's hardly any gap between the box and the cab. I've cut this plate out and I've cleaned up the paint. I'm about to clamp and weld. You can see the other one in the background. I've tack welded it. I was in two minds whether to weld it at all and use some VHB tape and rivet it to stop inhibit any rust. But so this one's in, so I've decided to tack weld it. I'm probably going to fully weld it, and that is going to be ultra strong, and it also flattens it off here because the cab's got a rounding here a little bit, which will make it easier to mount the bracketry for the accordion rubber gasket. So because I don't really want to, well, it's going to be almost impossible with that packers to make the folded metal go around a bend as such. So this is a way of reducing that, because this is dead straight and it'll come about here, which is sort of meets up the back end of this bit. So this is all tacked in. I'll just do a couple of more welds in there, clean it up, get some Sikaflex adhesive and sealant in there, and that'll be Bob's your uncle, Nellie's your aunt. So I'm about to do this one. You can see the difference in the metal, how straight it is compared to the profile of the truck. It's flat on the other side, but you can see this massive gap here, and that's what I'm doing it to flatten it off, to make it easier to mount the other bracketry for the accordion boot seal. Anyway, let's keep moving. So it's all tacked, but it's done. Whoa. And now I'm going to, these I'll just do a little bit longer like that. The rest I'm going to fully weld by spot welding. See if I can do a couple of strings as well. If we can get that done today before the sun's out, that'll be good. It's such an awkward thing. I should have done this before the box got on, but it's like everything. You're not sure, you don't know how, and you think, I've got more priorities, like building the actual box itself. So if you're ever going to do this post box building, just bear that in mind, especially if you've got a really tight space. Like I've got about between 170 to 230 millimeters of gap between the cab and the box itself, which doesn't give you much room. I can just about squeeze in there, as you could see, but that's after I've tilted the cab to the point where I can manage to get in and out without it being right up in the sky. Well, it's late afternoon, nearly 6 o'clock after work, and I managed yesterday, because it was the weekend, so most of this weekend I've been working on the pass-through from the cab side, and because this truck has quite an angled cab that way, it was quite tough to get everything reasonably straight. But you can see the finish is relatively good. There's a couple of little puck marks where the weld went. I've finished it with some gal, but yeah, so there it is, and the other one's on the other side. So now I've got basically a square aperture, and you can see where I've had to fill in where the central piece of partition was, where the two panes of glass came together. I'm going to put some light on because it's getting a bit late today. It's from when you're working. So this is the inside, and then I've seam welded where the actual seam spot weld lip would have been, and then an infill here where the actual pillar was that partitioned the two screens or two glass pieces. That's basically welded all the way up, and then there's the other side, and same scenario on this side. So now I have, so you can see where the original glass was, which was here. This is the seam weld, spot weld, and obviously cut out here to make it level. So now I've got a frame that goes in here. You can see the top is done as well, so there's some light under there, and it's all sealed. So, and it's all welded. You can see from this angle it's welded here, and it's all gal, and a pretty good job at that as well. So if anyone has one of these Isuzus, you'll have this weird sort of bung that basically acts as suspension in case the cab bounces up and down. So it looks like that, and this is going to interfere. It won't interfere with the door, but it will interfere with the accordion seal, which is going to sit down here somewhere. So you'll see there's a sort of a seam here. You can see it with the light in the rubber down the middle. I am literally going to cut that seam, cut the bolt shorter, and drop this cap down, which will be about 40-50 mil lower. We'll still have a bit of give in the rubber because it'll only be half the rubber, but I still think it will work fine, and that'll give us enough room to get the accordion framework put in here. So I'm going to now make a steel template that will go around there and up there. This one will cover this. I'm going to fill this with foam, and first I'll seal it with Sikaflex on the inside just to make sure, even though it's really well sprayed. Then I'll put a plate on here, and I'm going to rivet this plate. I'll either rivet it or I'll use VHB tape, which is extremely strong. There's nothing really hanging off it. The frame that's going in here is going to be riveted to this, and up the top here, and even that I might just VHB tape it. But that's the plan, and that's how far I've got. So I'm really thrilled I've got that far, because that was quite a mission. There's a lot of stitch welding going on and grinding back to get a decent surface, especially the slip along here. but it's all good now. So I'm going to put the frame back in, and I'm going to work out how big this template's going to be before it gets dark. So this frame will fit in here like so, and that's in, and then just grab you for a sec so you can see. And basically this frame's, so that's a nice fit there. Sorry it's a bit dark. So as you can see, that frame fits nicely all the way around, and the actual Alibaba door fits within this frame. So I'm basically going to Sikaflex this in with some VHB tape, and I'll probably rivet this top and the sides onto the framework that I built here, as you can see there. So now I'm going to make this template to fit in here and cover this gap. Template I've done, you saw me do the template, so I've cut the steel both sides, so you've got one there, one there. There's a cover plate. I pre-drilled the holes for the rivets. I'm not going to put too many because I'm going to use VHB tape and a bit of adhesive. 221 I think is the one I've got, because I can't get 252 at the moment. Same on that side. So now what I'm going to do is just pre-mark the layer that goes from here to the actual angle that's behind all this, and then I'm going to mark where the drill holes are going. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to very carefully try and pull this whole frame out. Time to get another drill bit. Just do my head in. It's too blunt, and now I've broken it. Anyway, the boys are just chillaxing in the car. So I sealed this yesterday with normal automotive sealant, just as a precaution, because I'll never be able to get to it again. And you can see it's sealed all the way through here. It's tacky, but it's dry because it's supposed to be a quick drying sealant, so there's no way water's going to ingress. I mean, it shouldn't anyway, because the weld, I fully welded it, and it's the same on this side. So what I'm going to do now, wow, it's good stuff. That's the Sika 221, by the way, in case you wanted to know. So that's completely sealed. I was doing it in the dark last night because I want to get this done today, so I'm going to quickly scuff up the edge a little bit, not too much, probably not scuff it, but more like clean it with some alcohol or methylated spirit. Probably get the tape, the VHB tape on it, line up the holes hopefully, because that stuff sticks like crazy, and a little bit of 252 or 227, which is the automotive / fiberglass adhesive. I'm not too worried about the finish. I sprayed them, painted them last night. So I'm going to now clean this up, get the other four pieces actually, because it's the frame of the door and the two cover panels for here and here. on it. So that's what I'm going to do next actually. So I'm going to clean that up and then spray it. So this is the outer template with the 1.5mm steel, and this was the inner template that I did the other day. And you can see they're drying there. I sprayed them yesterday. So these are the two internal basically plates to cover up the hole. And there's the frame.
Concentration on Omar's face.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
Doesn't often happen.
What do you mean? It's a permanent expression. If you look carefully, the rivets are actually being drilled into the alley extrusion of the door frame, so they don't actually go right through and are not visible on the inside of the frame, which is a real bonus. Alright, so it's on, but it's a real mess. I'm not doing that again like that. So I've got to put a couple of rivets in here. I'm going to drill, put it all together before it goes off too much. So it's in. That's the messiest job I've ever done, I think. But at least I know it's insulated in those pockets, as you can see, because it's all oozed out of the hole that I drilled there. I'm gonna have to clean this up before it gets too stuck, which I think it probably is. And I was just checking the VHB tape's bonded nicely all the way up here, because this level is slightly deeper than this because of the overlap of this steel from the frame. So that's why I use VHB tape to give me some gap fill, and I'll then sicker all the way around here and seal it all up, and then I think that's a job well done. I will seal around the outside because technically this is a backward door, as in the weatherproofing side is on this side, not the other side. The idea being is eventually to be covered by the accordion boot or gasket, and so it'll be well within, out of the weather in other words. But for now, because I haven't got the accordion and I've still got to build a frame to hold the accordion on the outside, I'm going to seal as much as I can, and just to mitigate any rain coming in. So I'm going to give a good clean up now and yeah, get rid of all this horribleness.